There exists a type of soul born with an insatiable desire to live authentically to the core. They do not know how to pretend, cannot love half-heartedly, and refuse to settle for relationships that merely fill a void. For them, truth matters more than comfort. Love, if it fails to touch the deepest layers of the soul, is better left unhad. Yet it is precisely this that makes them outsiders. At times, they wonder if something is wrong with them. Is their selectivity becoming a shackle? Number. Jung would say this is not a punishment. Carl Jung understood that these rare souls cannot love in ordinary ways. Before they can enter a truly authentic relationship, the universe will guide them through multiple layers of trials. Every moment of loneliness, every encounter with the wrong person, every shattering of the ego is a step in the journey of spiritual evolution. And if you've ever felt overlooked while others are loved, then perhaps you are one of these rare souls. So, what is the universe truly doing with souls like yours before sending you the right one? In this video, we will unravel the mysteries of the universe through the lens of Carl Jung. And stay until the end, because the answer will transform how you perceive yourself and love. Step 1. The separation from the collective unconscious. There is a phase that every rare soul must endure before meeting true love, a seemingly endless loneliness, not chosen but imposed, as if you've been plucked from the common current of humanity. While friends around you marry, start families, and share happy photos on social media, you sit there, staring at the void within and wondering, why can't I feel like they do? Why does something so natural to others feel like an impossible puzzle to me? Carl Jung called this the separation from the collective unconscious, a state where your soul is forced to break away from society's, families' and culture's shared patterns. It's when you can no longer live by the pre-written scripts of love, no longer find satisfaction in the happy story that most of humanity accepts. If ordinary people can enter relationships out of fear of loneliness, societal pressure, or a desire for stability, rare souls feel such choices as a betrayal of themselves. For them, enduring solitude is preferable to living in an empty connection. Imagine standing in the midst of a crowded party. Everyone is laughing, clinking glasses, exchanging intimate glances. You smile, but inside, there's only emptiness. It's not that you don't crave love. It's that you realize you cannot speak the same language as the connections unfolding around you. Every flirtation sounds like a copy of 1,000 others. Every date feels like a replay of a familiar script. And there you sit, feeling both present and absent. This is the severance from the collective unconscious. You are no longer swept along by society's usual patterns of love, but are cast into a desolate frontier, forced to confront the question, what do I truly seek in a relationship? This is a painful experience. This separation often brings a sense of being broken. You look around and see others adjusting to fit in. They lower their aspirations, compromise their standards, or simply stop questioning. They find an imperfect partner and choose to accept it. In your eyes, it seems they've solved the puzzle you're still grappling with. This can easily lead you to believe something is wrong with you, that your selectivity, your awareness, or the depth of your inner world is the reason you remain adrift. In truth, this is not a flaw, it is a sign of an evolutionary journey. Jung pointed out that to become truly human, we must learn to detach from what the collective imposes. This process is painful, because it means losing the comfort of the majority, the safety of being like everyone else. It's like a fledgling bird leaving the nest, facing a vast and intimidating sky. But without flying, it would never discover what its wings were meant for. In real life, this separation from the collective unconscious can manifest in many ways. A young person rejects the safe marriage arranged by their family, despite everyone around them insisting it's the right choice. A woman in her 30s walks away from a 7-year relationship because she realizes the love in it has faded, despite friends calling her foolish. A middle-aged man chooses to remain alone rather than continue meaningless dates, even as others say, "At your age, you should hold on to whatever's left." On the surface, they seem out of step, swimming against the current. But in reality, they are living true to an inner calling, a call that refuses to let them sacrifice their soul for the sake of security. This separation also brings another paradox: loneliness in a crowd. This is not the loneliness of having no one around, but the feeling of being isolated amidst a sea of people. For Jung, this is a crucial step. Only when you realize you don't belong to the common molds can you begin to seek your true self. But why is this loneliness necessary before you find true love? Because if you've never been forced to stand alone, you'll never learn to distinguish your true desires from those society has instilled in you. While others love to meet family expectations, gain societal approval, or avoid emptiness, you are compelled to face the question, why do I want love? Out of fear of being left behind, or out of a longing to share the deepest truth of myself? From a psychological perspective, this is the stage where consciousness begins to separate from the collective to form an independent self. Jung believed that many never reach this far. They choose to blend in, letting their personal lives dissolve into the collective unconscious. But rare souls have no such choice. For them, compromise is a form of betrayal. Thus, their loneliness is not a period of abandonment, but a spiritual cleansing, a process where all pretense, borrowed beliefs, and collective dreams are stripped away to reveal the core longing. This is why many rare souls endure long periods of belonging to no one. They cannot fake a smile during a dull date or stay in a relationship just because it's safe, and they blame themselves for it. But through Jung's lens, you'll see. This is the first step of individuation. The universe is pulling you away from the noise so you can hear the purest voice within. The key in this phase is not to escape loneliness, but to learn to sit with it, to realize that loneliness is not evidence of deficiency, but proof of your difference. You are lonely, not because you are less worthy, but because you carry a higher standard. You are not abandoned. You are being refined. Like gold that must endure fire to shine, your soul must pass through isolation from the crowd to become itself. And one day, you will look back on this journey and realize, if you had not walked alone, you would never have learned to recognize true love when it appeared. This separation enables you to distinguish a profound connection from a mere illusion. This emptiness makes you sensitive enough to sense the presence of a kindred soul, rather than losing yourself in shallow touches. The severance from the collective unconscious is the painful but necessary first step. It's as if you're forced to remove the mask society wears, standing alone with your true face. And from that moment, your journey toward love truly begins. Step 2. Encounter with the reflection. The activation of anima/animus. After the long void of loneliness, the universe often sends a remarkable figure, a person who sends shivers down your spine at first glance. Someone you believe has finally translated your soul into the language of the human world. But according to Jung, this is not yet true love. This is the appearance of the anima or animus. In other words, you are not falling in love with them, you are falling in love with the hidden part of yourself, reflected through them. In Jungian psychology, the anima animus is the complementary missing part of our soul. For a man, the anima is the feminine aspect he has yet to integrate. Softness, intuition, and emotion. For a woman, the animus is the masculine aspect not yet fully realized, reason, strength, and decisiveness. When someone appears embodying these corresponding qualities, we are instantly drawn to them, as if seeing the missing piece of our soul. This is a natural mechanism, but it is also fraught with danger, as it creates the illusion of fated love, when in reality, it is merely an unconscious reflection. This sensation often feels almost supernatural. Someone enters your life, and suddenly, the long silence of the universe transforms into music. You recognize in them qualities your heart has longed for: sensitivity, strength, creativity, depth. They speak a few words, and it feels as though those words are what you've waited to hear for ages. There's a strange synchronicity, making you believe you've known them before, perhaps even in another lifetime. Yet, this is the subtle trick of the unconscious. You are not recognizing a twin soul, but confronting the projection of your inner self. Picture this. You stand before a mirror. The reflection isn't another person but merely your own image. Yet, because the mirror is so flawless, you believe it's a separate entity. When someone triggers your anima animus, they become a living mirror. You see in them the qualities you crave in yourself. And because you haven't yet recognized this, you mistake it for love for them, when in reality, you are loving the latent essence of yourself. In everyday life, this phenomenon is common, but often confused with love at first sight. I recall a young woman who follows this channel sharing her story in a letter. She was deeply shy, particularly afraid of making significant decisions on her own. Throughout her youth, she let others choose for her field of study, her career, and even her relationships. Then one day, she met a man with a commanding presence, a resolute gaze, and a decisive way of speaking. After just a few interactions, she was convinced he was the one she'd been searching for. In her eyes, his strength was not only captivating, but also a shield for her inner fears. Yet after some time together, she realized he didn't truly understand her, nor could he provide the spiritual companionship her heart craved. He was just an ordinary person, with strengths and flaws, not the supernatural ideal she had projected onto him. This disappointment led her to realize what she had loved wasn't entirely him, but the decisiveness she longed for in herself. Another case involves a man who once confided in me. He grew up in a family that valued toughness and despised weakness. From a young age, he learned to suppress his sensitivity, to hold back tears. Then he met a woman with a profound capacity for empathy. She listened to him with rare gentleness, saw straight through to the emotions he'd hidden, and this nearly mesmerized him. He thought this was fated love, that he had finally found the woman who could heal all his wounds. But after a few months, He realized she couldn't bear the weight of the voids he hadn't yet faced himself. Her gentleness wasn't enough to make him feel whole, and the relationship grew heavy. Only then did he understand. What he had craved wasn't her, but the softness and empathy he had buried within himself long ago. Perhaps you too have experienced such a moment, where your heart trembled with the belief that you'd found your destiny, only to be shattered when you realized it was merely a reflection of your unconscious. If this story reminds you of an experience, I'd love to hear you share it. It's also a way to mark your progress in self-awareness. The issue isn't that this attraction is false. On the contrary, it's very real, so intense that many believe this is the one. But the harsh truth is, such relationships often don't last. Love built on projection is bound to crumble when you realize the other person isn't the perfect archetype you imagined. They too have flaws, shadows, and parts that don't fit. And when the illusion fades, the disappointment can be as deep as an abyss. Jung emphasized that this encounter is not about finding your soulmate, but about becoming aware of the missing parts of yourself. The animus is not just an external image. It's a reminder that you need to integrate those qualities into your inner life. If a man is captivated by a woman's sensitivity, it means he needs to learn to connect with his own softness, rather than relying on someone else to fill that gap. If a woman is drawn to a man's strength, it's a sign she needs to awaken her own decisiveness, not merely cling to someone for security. Here's the shocking truth. The love you feel in this moment is, in large part, love for yourself, for the unrealized potential calling out to you. The other person is merely a messenger sent by the universe, like a mirror, to show you the unintegrated shadow of your soul. It's a gift, but if you mistake it for eternal love, you'll fall into a cycle of disappointment and dependency. What makes this phase so difficult is that it's both beautiful and painful. Beautiful because it opens you to a profound, intense emotional experience, as if touching the sacred door of love. Painful because it teaches you a harsh lesson. The person you thought was your destiny is sometimes just a mirror for learning about yourself. Many rare souls get stuck here, chasing one reflection after another, never realizing that what they truly need is to turn inward and integrate the missing piece. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." When you pass through this phase with awareness, you stop seeing the other person as your savior. Instead, you become grateful for their role in helping you see the missing shadow of your soul. You begin to cultivate those qualities within yourself, and from there you move closer to the ability to love a real person, not because they reflect you, but because you see them as they truly are. Step 3. Self-sabotage. The resistance from the shadow. This is when the shadow, the unconscious part harboring all your fears, wounds, doubts, and defense mechanisms, begins to rise. And the paradox is this: the shadow often remains dormant in wrong relationships, but erupts fiercely when you're on the verge of touching what you've always longed for. You can imagine it like a prisoner held captive for years. When the door to freedom finally opens, instead of running out, they hesitate, even retreating into the familiar darkness. Freedom terrifies them because they've grown accustomed to chains. True love is the same. When someone truly compatible enters your life, someone capable of seeing you as you are, Instead of opening your heart, you suddenly find a myriad of reasons to pull away. You start questioning, are they truly sincere? Is this just another illusion? Will I be hurt again like before? And in that moment, you unconsciously become the saboteur of your own opportunity. In psychology, this is called self-sabotage, undermining the very thing you desire most. Jung explained that the shadow doesn't just contain negativity, it's also the repository of the parts of yourself you haven't dared to face. When true love appears, it demands that you open the darkest rooms within yourself, and it's this demand that provokes the shadow's rebellion. It whispers doubts, sows fear, and builds invisible walls. A woman once shared a story that resonated with many. After years of loneliness, she finally met a man she described as both gentle and steadfast. He genuinely cared, didn't judge, and imposed no pressure. In the early days, she felt comforted, fully seen. But just weeks later, she began to change. She grew suspicious of his every word, scrutinized every detail, and interpreted every silence as a sign of betrayal. She confessed, "I couldn't believe someone like that existed. I told myself he must be hiding something, and in my fear of being abandoned, I was the one who pushed him away first." Her shadow, laden with memories of past betrayals, caused her to sabotage the love just as it began to bloom. The shadow acts like a gatekeeper. It hates change, for change means the collapse of long-standing defense mechanisms. It whispers, "Don't trust them. Don't let anyone touch that pain. Don't take the risk, because risking means you could lose everything." But it's this very defense that makes you lose what's most precious. Instead of living in a true relationship, you're trapped in a cycle of your own fears. What makes this phase so challenging is its subtlety. Self-sabotage isn't always as overt as ending a relationship. Sometimes it's small actions, delaying a response to a message, setting unreasonable tests for the other person, or feigning indifference to see if they'll stay. You think you're testing their love, but in reality, your shadow is in control, turning you into an endless challenger. Jung once said, "We meet ourselves time and again in 1,000 disguises on the path of life." In love, the shadow is one of those disguises. When you reject someone truly compatible, when you push them away with suspicion, you're not rejecting them, you're rejecting your own capacity for healing. True love is like sunlight. It's warm, gentle, but it also reveals the dust you've hidden in the dark. Others may complement your clean room, but when sunlight streams in, every speck of dust becomes visible. At that moment, you have two choices. Clean the room to make it truly pristine, or close the curtains to pretend the dust doesn't exist. Self-sabotage is choosing to close the curtains, rejecting the light, and continuing to live in familiar darkness. This is why many say they're not ready, even when they meet someone worthy. In truth, it's not that they're not ready for love. They're not ready to face their shadow. True love always comes with responsibility. The responsibility to shed your armor, expose your vulnerabilities, and accept that you might get hurt. It's a dangerous leap, but it's also the only leap that can lead to truth. From a therapeutic perspective, this is a critical moment. If you realize that your self-sabotaging behaviors aren't your flawed nature, but merely the voice of your shadow, you can begin to change. Recognition is the first step. Instead of believing every doubt in your mind, you learn to ask, is this intuition or just the old darkness speaking? Only by asking this question do you gain the chance to choose a different response, breaking the old cycle. This step is the hardest test because it requires you to trust when trust feels most terrifying. It forces you to open your heart when it's used to staying closed. And it challenges you to abandon the noble role of victim to become someone willing to live fully in the light. Jung called this confronting the shadow. Not to destroy it, but to integrate it, to realize that fear doesn't vanish, but you no longer let it steer the ship of your life. If you've ever wondered why you keep inadvertently pushing love away, know that it's not a punishment, but a reminder. You haven't failed at love. You're merely in a battle with your shadow. And each time you recognize this, each time you pause before sabotaging, each time you bravely stay instead of fleeing, you take a step closer to true love. Step 4. Inner restructuring. As you begin to recognize the shadow and learn not to let it sabotage precious connections, a more subtle challenge emerges. If the shadow represents fearful resistance, the next step is a complete transformation. The universe demands not only that you heal your wounds, but that you restructure your entire inner world. This is no longer about preventing love from being destroyed, but about learning to become a new person, a version of yourself that is utterly authentic. Jung called this process individuation, the painful but necessary journey to become your true self, no longer a product of society, family, or the past. If confronting the shadow is like cleaning a dusty, darkened room, inner restructuring is about tearing down the entire old house and rebuilding its foundation. You're not just removing a few crumbling walls. You realize the original blueprint of the house was never suited to hold your soul. To create a solid foundation for true love, you must redesign from the ground up with honesty, awareness, and courage. In reality, this restructuring often manifests as seemingly unusual changes. Some suddenly abandon a stable but stifling job. Others cut ties with long-standing but toxic friendships. Some let go of lifelong family roles, the obedient child, the sacrificial sibling, the overburdened caretaker, to rediscover their true self. These decisions often bewilder those around them. Why quit? Why change so suddenly? Why not continue as before? But for the person undergoing this, it feels like survival. Staying within the old structures is akin to slowly dying in silence. Jung warned that one of the subtlest traps for rare souls is turning pain into identity. We tell ourselves, I'm special because I'm hard to love. I'm profound because I'm always misunderstood. I'm worthy because I've endured more. In truth, this is how we cling to the shadow to avoid stepping into the light. Inner restructuring means daring to let go of even the noble story of pain, no longer using loneliness to define yourself, no longer using difference to justify avoiding intimacy. It's a deeply painful surrender, for sometimes we love our wounds more than the prospect of healing. From a psychological perspective, this is the phase where the ego faces its greatest challenge. The false identities built since childhood, the good child to earn parental love, the achiever for societal approval, the outsider to feel unique, begin to collapse. In their place emerges a raw, unadorned self. No roles, no medals, no masks. And you must ask, if I am not all those things, who am I? This question can spark panic, but it also paves the way for freedom. Another way to visualize it, imagine carrying an old, worn suitcase filled with broken items you haul around, simply because they're tied to memories. You walk heavily, exhausted, but can't bear to let go. Inner restructuring is the decision to open that suitcase, courageously discard each item, and realize your journey becomes far lighter when you carry only what's truly essential. Have you ever felt that suitcase in your own life, a relationship, a role, or a habit you know is outdated but can't release? If so, leave an emoji or a number below. You'll be surprised to find a community of others with similar experiences, and perhaps their stories will give you the courage to open your own suitcase. Many ask, how do I know I'm in this phase? The answer often lies in a sense of misalignment. Conversations that once excited you feel meaningless. Pleasures that once thrilled you become monotonous repetition. Relationships that were once close turn into burdens. You sense yourself changing, and this change confuses others. But in truth, it's a sign you're shedding an old version of yourself to be reborn as the person your soul has always longed to be. The most crucial aspect of this phase isn't how to find love, but how to live true to your own truth. For true love can only thrive on a foundation of authenticity. If you haven't made peace with that truth, every relationship you build will crumble under the weight of pretense. Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." But that is precisely what sets you free. As you move through this restructuring, something miraculous happens. Your energy shifts. You no longer need to impress, fear abandonment, or seek external validation. You enter a room without scanning for someone who fits you. You become whole in your own presence. And that energy, the energy of authenticity, begins to attract people, opportunities, and relationships that align with it. Inner restructuring is never easy. It may cost you things you once thought were everything. But in return, it gives you yourself, whole, strong, and true. Only then are you ready for the final stage, the paradoxical surrender, where you stop seeking love and, in doing so, unexpectedly find it. Step 5. Surrender to life. If inner restructuring is about dismantling the old house to build a solid foundation, the final step is the most elusive paradox. When you've become your true self, the universe demands that you let go of the very desire that drove you all along, the desire to find love. This isn't about giving up on love, but relinquishing the obsessive craving for it, so you no longer seek it as a condition for feeling whole. This is when you enter a state of surrender, not defeat, but radical acceptance, where you stop clinging and allow life to unfold on its own. Many misinterpret surrender as giving up. If I stop searching, it means I've lost hope. But Jung would argue the opposite. Only when you release desperate longing are you free enough to recognize that love was always right here. It's like a swimmer underwater. The more they thrash in panic, the deeper they sink. But when they relax their body, they float to the surface. Love is the same. The more you chase it, the further it slips away. The more you let go, the more it has a chance to find you. In psychotherapy, there's a concept called paradoxical intention. It describes how the more you try to control something, the more you fail. But when you surrender, it resolves naturally. For example, an insomniac who forces themselves to sleep grows more anxious and sleepless. Only when they accept, it's okay to stay awake, does sleep come. In love, the same principle applies. When you stop making love the goal, it becomes reality. I recall the story of a man who spent over a decade desperately searching. He tried every dating avenue, every app, and fleeting relationships. The more he failed, the more desperate he became, doubling down on his hunt, until one day, he let go. He focused on work he loved, traveled alone, and took up photography, a passion he'd postponed while chasing others. Ironically, when he stopped searching, he met his life partner on a trip, completely unexpectedly. He said, "For the first time, I didn't need to prove anything or worry if this was the one. I was just living true to myself, and love came as if it were inevitable." That is the power of surrender. Surrender also means shifting the motive of love, from seeking someone to fill a void to wanting to share your wholeness. This is the fundamental difference. When you seek love for validation, you enter relationships as a lacking person, attracting situations that mirror that lack. But when you step out of surrender, you no longer need love to complete you. You are complete, and love becomes an extension, not a salvation. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Surrender is living that privilege. You no longer use love to define yourself or see someone's presence as proof of your worth. Instead, you live in wholeness, and love, if it comes, is a gift, not a necessity for survival. Imagine surrender as releasing a tightly gripped rope. For years, you believed the rope was the only thing keeping you from falling into an abyss. But in truth, clinging to it caused pain and kept you stuck. When you dare to let go, you discover there's no abyss beneath you, just solid ground. True love only appears when your hands no longer tremble in fear, but open naturally. Jung called this a shift from need to desire. Operating from need, you approach love with anxiety. I need someone so I'm not alone. But from desire you say, I want someone to share my wholeness. This is the state where true love becomes possible. Surrender also signals that you've passed the earlier lessons. You no longer seek to prove your worth through someone's presence. You're no longer led by anima/animus into illusions. You don't let the shadow control you with fear. You no longer cling to a painful identity to feel special. You simply live, and in that living, love returns to its natural place. Not something to grasp, but a flow you can move with. The greatest paradox is this: only when you no longer need love are you truly ready for it. Only when you stop searching can you see it was always around you. Like the sun, it never disappears. You were just too busy looking down to lift your head. Reflecting on this journey, you may realize love is never just a story between two people. It's a journey of the soul, a path the universe uses to teach you about yourself. Every challenge, every encounter, every moment of heartbreak or awakening is not random. They are milestones for your growth, for your heart to learn to see with new eyes, no longer blinded by fear, but illuminated by truth. The strange thing is, when you stop seeing love as a destination to reach and start living in your inherent wholeness, the world softens. You no longer scramble to search or rush to prove yourself. You simply exist. And in that presence, love finds you, quietly, surely, as if it had been waiting for you all along. Perhaps you're somewhere on this path, stepping out of the collective unconscious, facing the darkness, learning to let go of the old suitcase, or tentatively surrendering to life. Wherever you are, know you're not alone. Many rare souls are walking this same road, and this invisible companionship is itself a form of love. If these words resonate with you, share them with those you know need to hear them. And if you want to dive deeper into Jung's mysteries with me, hit like and subscribe. Who knows, this space might become a haven where your soul is truly seen.